Hi kids, today we're going to be reading Emily Writes, Emily Dickinson and Her Poetic Beginnings by Jane Yolen, illustrated by Davenier. Let's see what the book is all about. Spring 1834, Amherst, Massachusetts. Little Emily tiptoes into father's study, being as quiet as dust. She discovers a scrap of paper under father's desk, some chance slip. It is the back of one of his legal letters, discarded for he is done with it. She finds a now pencil stuck too, on the floor near the basket. Perhaps she thinks, I will make a poem. Her brother Austin knows a lot about poems. She finds yet another piece of paper, this time in the basket. She likes it with even better than the first, for it has much numbers on it. Checking to see if father notices, she picks that paper out, turning it around until it fits neatly under her hand. She scribbles curlicues and circles, though not actual letters, some round like the moon or a summer peach, some the spiral of a hanging vine. A year and a half older, Austin already knows how to write his ABCs. He has tried to teach Emily to write her name. Emily begins with an E, he says, drawing the capital E, strict as a ruler, down the left side of the page. Emily's lines are never so straight. She prefers the bend, the curve. See, father, Emily says to the stern-faced man busy at his desk, I wrote this poem for you. He nods but does not stop working, nor does he smile. He only reads on Sunday. Emily thinks she likes the Bible stories he reads aloud, though she does not like sitting still just to hear a tale. Sometimes she thinks father is as far away as an island. There is an island in the Connecticut River that is certainly far away. Emily takes her sheet of paper with his poem into the bustling kitchen. I wrote a poem, she says. Mrs. Max studies the paper with great care. What does it say? She asks. I don't have my glasses. Emily giggles and points. The glasses are on the top of Mrs. Mack's head. Oh, those are my poetry glasses, says Mrs. Mack. Those are my cooking glasses. Emily points to the squiggle on the page she likes poems, especially the verses Austin recites. So it does, replies Mrs. Mack. Frog and bog, a very good rhyme indeed. Then surprisingly she adds, me deep, and makes a bullfrog face. She reads her poem to Mrs. Mack. Is it a 3-word poem? Frog and bog, she says. It rhymes. Emily thinks Mrs. Mack's face looks as if it has turned green. She certainly sounds like the big bullfrog that sings at the garden's end. They both laugh and share the crumbles of last night's coconut cake. Then Emily clears the table and sets the 2 small plates by the side of the sink. Now Emily climbs the stairs to find Mother laying in her bed, a cooling cloth on her forehead. She often spends the afternoon this way. I wrote a poem, Emily says. Frog and bog. Mother does not open her eyes. Yes, dear, she says. Me deep, replies Emily. Not so loud, says Mother. You will wake Lavinia. Emily tiptoes over to the baby's coat, whispers, Frog and bog. Little Beanie smiles in her sleep. She always smiles, Emily thinks. She's even just like Austin's straight line. Beanie puts her thumb in her mouth, as if it is a stopper in a bottle. Frog and bog, Emily repeats, licking each word. They taste as sweet as the honey the bee bears away. The frog poem sounds even better this time. Then Emily goes downstairs quietly, so as not to annoy Mother, who makes her feel rainy. Out she heads into the spring garden, for she has not told her poem to the flowers yet. There are roses still curled in their buds, seeds of daffodils, small presents of crocuses. Emily smiles. The garden makes her feel all sunny like a poet. Frog and bug, she whispers, and thinks she hears in return the long sigh of the frog. She puts the poem under a rock and goes looking for the real frog she heard in the night. There is no bog in Amherst, but there are plenty of springs. She thinks about the real and the unreal. Perhaps poems are in the in between, just as she is in between Austin and Vinny. Then she goes back into the house and finds another chance slip. This one is an envelope with writing on it. When she carefully opens it, lifting the flap, it looks just like a house. Envelope, she says out loud. She tries to think what rhymes with it and cannot. Mrs. Mac is still in the kitchen, so Emily goes in to ask. She holds up the envelope and says, "What rhymes with this?" Mrs. Mac takes the envelope and places it next to her ear, as if she is listening to what the paper has to tell her. At last she says, "Hope, my dear girl, that's the best rhyme for envelope. Though in a pinch you might try cup or lop, or perhaps soap. But what you should make of all those rhymes, I haven't any idea." Then they sit down to share a fresh baked donut. "Hope," says Emily a bit dreamily as she bites into her bit. "Jum," she mumbles, "I had hoped for that." The donut is as warm and sweet in her mouth as any new poem, and as true. And that, my friends, was the end of the story. I'll see you next time. Bye.